Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, I am so excited about my guest today. He is a local friend. I've known him for a little while. He's got such an incredible story. He has had a remarkable marketing career spanning over 30 years, during which he's held pivotal roles in prominent corporations like Nokia and Dr. Pepper, ascending from SVP of marketing all the way to US brand manager. However, I think what makes him truly remarkable is what he's going to talk about today, because he has taken what has been a dire situation and turned that around with being diagnosed with cancer. So he's going to be talking about that today. But before I get him on here, I want to do a quick shout out to my sponsors. So today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, you're going to want to go to photosbywalt.com. All right, Paul. So excited to chat with you today. So Paul Studebaker, he is the dedicated owner of a small marketing agency. He's had a multifaceted journey. I was looking at all the things you've done. He's been a board member. He's been a media spokesman. He was a stadium announcer for a girls' soccer team. I'm assuming this was for a daughter or something. He's also been the president of a middle school booster club. And so what's great about all of this is he's been able to hone his leadership skills, which I'm sure have proven very invaluable with everything that's been going on. So in the face of a recent terminal cancer diagnosis, he's exhibited unparalleled resilience and unwavering determination. Instead of succumbing to despair, he's embraced life fully and become a beacon of inspiration for those of us that know him. So Paul, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here today.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for having me. To be honest with you, I'd never want to be here on your show to talk about this. It's not my first preference, but now that things have happened, it is absolutely my goal and my give back.
I love it. I know nobody ever wants to be in that position, right? But I think you've been truly remarkable, because, and we talked about this off camera, that, when you have a situation like this, I haven't been in it, but obviously other people have. And when you're able to take a situation and turn it around and become an inspiration to others, it becomes kind of a purpose and a passion for some people. And I think it's great that you're able to take that situation and move it into a place where you can help other people with other parts of their lives. So I want to talk about this a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you, so our audience kind of knows, because I've talked to you, obviously, but
Sure.
Other people.
Well, let me give you a background. So, very healthy lifestyle. I mean, that's how I've lived my life. So I've always exercised 5 or 6 days a week, and I say always. I mean, that's kind of ever since. So I eat healthy, all that stuff, and about, we'll say 14 months ago, I caught COVID for the first time, and I had been, to each their own, but I had been vaccinated and boosted and all that stuff, and so once I got it, I thought, big deal, no big deal at all. I'll bounce back in a couple of days, and hit me a little bit harder than I thought that it would. And but within 3 or 4 days, it went away, and I was negative, but I felt like I had some stuff in my chest still after that, some lingering, phlegm or maybe some kind of pneumonia or something. I could feel for the first time something there. And so I talked to my doctor and just said, hey, I think I may be one of those COVID long haulers. I may have just some issues going on, and I'd like to see if we can get that cleared out. And no big deal. She was not concerned about it, and she put me on some breathing treatments. I'd come in once a week, and they put me on some IV to try and clear it out, and et cetera, et cetera. And I did that for about a month, once a week. And then after about the 3rd to 4th week, I just said, hey, I'm not so sure that this is working all that great. I really appreciate it, but it feels like it's getting a little tighter. Maybe I should get a scan in my chest. And at that point, she just said, well, let's go ahead and finish this out. And then if it still feels that way in a couple of weeks, we'll give you a scan. So that's first thing I want to say is be your own advocate, right? I could feel that there was something. Now, I no way did I think it is what I have now. I just
Right.
had some kind of COVID issue, right? So, so then that time period went away. It went on, and I said, okay, I definitely need a scan. So they gave me a scan, and at that point, they just said, well, there may be more to it than we think. You've got a lump in one of your lung nodes. Excuse me, one of your lungs, and we need to bring you back in here tomorrow and do a more thorough CT scan. Well, they did. And about that point, the guy that was a technician, although he's not supposed to, he walked out and he said, well, how'd you know? And again, I didn't know anything, right? I'm
Right.
thinking I had COVID. I said, well, I don't know. I just felt like I had a lot, some phlegm in here, or maybe walking pneumonia or pneumonia. I've been doing my little Google searches, but I just have stuff going on. He said, yeah, you do. He said, you got a lot going on, and wish me well. And when I talked to my doctor, she just said, well, there's a chance that it could be cancer. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just COVID related. But I want to send you over to a thoracic surgeon who's then going to do a biopsy, and he'll talk to you about that. And then we'll just make sure that it's not cancer. And then we'll figure out how to clear it out at that point. Well, that was right about a year ago. We'll say 14 months ago. And no, that's not true. Excuse me. That was right at a year ago. And it was September 22nd, 2022. It's a day I'll
Wow.
never forget, right? You
Yeah.
just don't forget that stuff.
Right.
So I'm thinking it's COVID. I go in to see this guy. He shows up. My family knew I was coming in, and they just said, let us know afterwards. And when I saw him and he walked in, he said, hey, he just said, very direct. And I appreciate that. Some do, some don't. But I needed to know what was going on. He just said, well, get COVID out of your mind. You don't have COVID. You have lung cancer. And unfortunately, it's advanced. At that point, what do you do? Right? I mean, you just sit there, you're a deer in a headlight. And I said, well, I can't have lung cancer. I don't smoke. And he said, doesn't matter. About 50% of lung cancer patients don't smoke. And he
Wow.
said, just understand you have lung cancer. We hadn't done the biopsy, so I can't confirm that 100%. But I've looked at all the bios and all the markers and just know where you are, and you've got a battle ahead of you. At that point, I'm white.
Yeah.
I didn't go in there with anybody. I walked out like anybody else. I started crying. It's a little tough for me to say stuff,
Sure.
but I started crying, and I knew I couldn't call my family members or my kids. So, I just decided when I was walking to my car, I don't know what to do. So I just went driving around. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't text. I knew I owed them a phone call. And thank God for Sonic drive-ins, right? I'm an old Dr. Pepper guy, and I love my Dr. Pepper with cherry and lime. So I drove to my nearest Sonic, ordered that Route 44, and I just sat there. And I sat there for about 45 minutes to an hour, just processing the situation.
Yeah.
I had a buddy call, and I just said, I can't talk right now. I'll call you back. So he knew. Um, so fast forward, I did text my kids, and I said, hey, I can't talk right now, but I'll call y'all tonight when I'm able to talk. So they knew, and it was the toughest day of my life, that I'll ever have, really, that anybody would ever have.
Sure.
And so that afternoon, I just did some serious thinking and processing and talked to some people and finally, I just I called my kids that night, each one. Or I had two kids. I called my
Mm-hmm.
son and talked to him, then called my daughter, talked to her, and then I called my other family members, and I had always laughed, right? And they were saying previously before I went in, I said, I don't think I have cancer. This is COVID. I got a lot of stuff going on in my chest, but y'all know me. I'm always go big or go home.
Mm.
So I kind of made that reference, and I kind of laughed about it when I was talking to my kids and family members. I said, remember last week when I said go big or go home? I said, well, I went big. I've got 36 nodules across both lungs. They're saying that it is cancer, and the chances are it's in other parts of my body. Um, I'm gonna, I've got to fight, but I'm gonna do my best, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Who does?
Right.
So I had the biopsy about 2 weeks later. They had to go down through my throat and take out some samples and all that stuff. And then I got the best news that I could possibly have. And the best news was that my those samples that they took, they tested against different medicines out there, and my cells reacted favorably to a new medication that they have in the marketplace. It's only been available, FDA approved, since March of 2020.
Okay.
So we're now 2.5 years out or whatever. So what a great research effort that went into this new drug. So where this all leads me is to today. I
Mm-hmm.
simply take, here we are again, over a year later, I simply take a chemo pill every day. I have no side effects. I did for the first week of taking it. They were pretty bad side effects. And then my body adjusted. And then since then, it's like I take an aspirin every morning. I still run. I ran this morning. I ran 3.5 miles this morning. I do that every other day. And in between, I do little arm weights and all that stuff. And I play tennis. I still play tennis. I never stop during any of that. So back to my thoracic surgeon, that one D-Day, and that's what I call it, September 22nd. At the end of that session, when he was so blunt and direct with me, he said, "Hey, I'm going to leave you with one really good thought." And he said, "I've got, this is what I do when I see cancer patients every day. When you walked in the door, I was expecting to see somebody that was frail, that had
Mm-hmm.
lost a lot of weight, maybe on a walker, that was really in bad shape, and you walked in and you looked like you were about to run a 10K. He said, I had seen your scans. Now I had seen you, and I could not put the two together.
Yeah.
You must live a very active, healthy lifestyle. And if I'm going to bet on anybody in my practice to get not necessarily through this, but to be able to handle this, I'm betting on you because of your healthy lifestyle. So think about that in the future when eating and exercising or not exercising. And it has helped me. It has helped me stay who I am. And he said, oh, by the way, if you can continue to exercise at this same pace you've done, it's the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I've been running 3.5 miles forever, but at that point, I was not able to run my full 3.5 miles. Well, I did, but I'd have to stop 3 or 4 times to catch my breath. Again, I thought it was just due to COVID, but
Right.
it wasn't. It was stage 4 lung cancer. I am terminal, so they said it will get you, but we're putting you on this new pill, and the idea is to shrink the cancer and then hold it in place for as long as possible. It will, just like any living organism, it will want to try and mutate and grow back, and it will. So you've got a roller coaster ride for the rest of your life until the roller coaster stops.
Wow.
How do you deal with that? Again,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. Well,
fam,
and
yeah,
I think the thing that's so remarkable, Paul, is when you talk about your story, because you're right. You go in thinking you've got something else because really you're healthy, right? Like you're active, you're playing tennis, you're
absolutely,
running, you're eating right. I mean, if you look at you, you're healthy. You're not.
yeah,
You're like your doctor's surprised because the diagnosis doesn't match the human coming into the office, right? But I would agree with him when I think about somebody in that situation that your chances of the quality of life for you has the potential to be better because of the way you're living your life, your outlook, the way
yeah,
you're doing things continually to get through it, right? Rather than be this is what it is and I'm just going to shrivel up in the corner
yeah,
and do nothing with myself, right?
yeah. I will not do that.
Yeah, you don't strike me as that type of person. I probably would be the same way. You don't strike me as that type of a just go down and not, go with a fight to begin with.
Well, this is where it changed, right? So I did get on the pill. It has been over a year. The cancer did shrink.
Okay.
It is being held in place. So I live my life exactly like I did before. However, I've added to it. I'm a
Mm,
blessed individual. It changed my mindset. You know, the song by Tim McGraw, Live Like You're Dying. You know, I went
right.
skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing, rode 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. Well, I am too old for that. I'm 61 years old. I'm not going to ride Fu Manchu.
No bull riding for
No bull
you.
riding for me. It'd be kind of interesting, but
Yeah.
no, I'll pass on that. Not because of cancer, but just because of the
Sure.
age thing.
Sure.
That being said, I live my life how I did, but now it's with mindful living. And mindful living to me is waking up every day.
Yeah.
Without the, I'll go back a little bit. Without this pill, I would have passed away in January or February of this last year.
Wow.
I was going down very quickly until I took that pill, and remarkable recovery within weeks. I was feeling a difference. Um, but I probably would have passed within 6 months, and that would have put it in January, February. So I'm blessed every day with a new life. And I don't take every day for granted. You know, I don't wake up and say, oh my gosh, it's a whole new day today. I
Yeah.
expect to be around tomorrow. I expect to be around next week, et cetera, et cetera. However, my life expectancy is unknown. I don't even want to tell you the odds, so
Yeah.
I don't focus on it. What I focus on is the future, and taking each day and being knowing that I'm blessed with that that day. I said I don't focus on that, but I do. I mean, I didn't wake up this morning and say, oh gosh, what can I do today to give back? But what I have done is live my life purposefully in that my relationships are stronger. I mean, this is, you know, you really have to look back at things. Family, friends mean, and memories mean everything to me. Um, you know, I again, I can't look at the future and
Right.
say I'm going to do this or do that. And so part of my mindful living was what is my purpose, right? I haven't accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish in business or any of that, and I won't. So I had to change. I couldn't go corporate anymore because I have to go every month and get go to the oncologist and check my vitals. I have to get scans every 3 months. I need the ultimate flexibility. So part of my new living is I decided to go ahead and start my own little company, little marketing agency, so I could have that flexibility and do what I want. And so now I can be on this podcast, and that's part of my mindful living is as to what is my purpose, what has been my purpose, what
Sure.
do I want to do, and part of that is just talk and let people know that there's adversity out there. You got to play the hand that you're dealt, and play it the best that you can. Um, and so part of what I wanted to do is just give back and be able to talk and tell you and your audience, you know what, it's okay. I have I'm terminal C is what I call it. I say C because it's cancer. So I'm terminal C. Um, but I'm here and I'm making furthering my relationships, and now I'm talking to this great audience about, it's no why me. So my answer is why not me, right? I'm older. I'm
Yeah.
61 years old. I was diagnosed at the age of 60. So I don't sit around and dwell on that. I dwell on what can I do now to make whatever time I have as great as possible. I've traveled.
Right.
I've been to Mexico twice. I went to Hawaii. I went to London. I went last weekend. It doesn't sound like exactly an exotic destination, but I went to the Panhandle of Texas with my kids because that's where I'm originally from, and I wanted them to see where I was born and initially raised before I moved to Dallas and lived here forever. So we had a great time. We went up there and we saw the free range bison at Caprock Canyon State Park. We went and rode horseback at Paladero Canyon, and we just did all the great stuff.
It's awesome.
So making memories and making an impression, and if I can um, do that with my kids, that's first and foremost, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, Paul, there's so many takeaways from this in listening to your story. I mean, it's kind of cliche when we talk about like being, having mindful living and embracing, the journey and the moment, but you're a prime example of why this is so important, right? Like I just got off a webinar with somebody and we were talking about, this whole kind of living in the moment and being mindful. And I had told you that I, had spoken to a girl last week that was in a car accident, and then she set a world record after she came out
Wow.
of that by climbing these 7 mountains. And she talks about, I asked her, one of the questions was, were you always a high achiever? Because clearly,
Yeah,
to do that kind of a thing, you've
that's
got to be some kind of
crazy.
achiever. And she said to me, she's always sort of been this high achiever, but
Okay.
prior to her accident, she was doing things because she had a fear of not needing something. It was more, she was living in fear. If I
Okay.
don't do this, right? And I've talked about this, that we
Yeah.
will do things to move away from pain, right? We will do things to prevent. She said that now she lives with a different purpose. It's about, like you, why not? Why can I not do this? And so then she
Right.
goes and climbs all these mountains and sets this world record. And she has this new lease. She said when she came out of that accident, she sort of had this new lease on life, like this new outlook of, I'm going to embrace the journey of doing these things. And she said there were several mountains she did not peak. And if she had not embraced the journey, she might not have gone back up to climb the mountain, right? Because she would have been
Wow.
so fixated on that end result. So I think,
Sure.
to your point, there's so many takeaways in this about learning to live in the moment and do the things that, obviously don't do things that are going to harm your health or ruin you financially. But
Right.
if there's something that you want to do and it's on your list to do and you can make it happen, figure out how to make it happen, right? Like figure out
Yeah.
how to do it.
So part of that mindful living, that again, what I call mindful living, is just trying to say yes as much as possible now. In the past, it was always, well, I've got this and I've got that. Now I've kind of changed that mindset to where I'm going to say yes as much as possible unless something gets in the way. So if somebody asked me to go to, you know, the panhandle for the weekend or whatever, I'm going to say, yeah, I
I'm
think
all
let's do it. Let's go down there. I'm going to see fraternity brothers in a couple of weeks or so, and I just, because they said, hey, we're all getting together. You want to come down? And in the past, it may have been, no, I can't make it because of X, Y, Z. But now, yeah, I'm in.
You're doing it. You're
Count
doing
me
it.
in.
You said a lot of really great things, Paul, and thank you for being, vulnerable and authentic in this because I know it's not easy to talk about, and I could tell by, you talking about the story. But I would love to know what do you feel like you've learned about yourself in all of this? Like, what do you feel like is the you found your person?
Perseverance.
Hmm, yeah,
Perseverance. I mean, I literally, when he told me that day, and I just had to process it. I've heard this from somebody else. Then you say, okay, now what?
right,
And I had to just deal with it because it's not going to change.
right.
So how do you persevere through it? I do have some. This kind of leads into your audience and handling any kind of adversity
Mm-hmm,
out there.
mm-hmm,
Mine happens to be a really bad one, right?
right.
But I've also gone through a divorce. That was very difficult. I've gone through job losses in the past. I've gone through, living 61 years now. I've gone through a lot
Right.
throughout my life and my career. So I wrote down what I think would be 10 steps to handling adversity and perseverance to get through. And if
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
mind, I
Share them
would
with us.
love to read
Yeah.
these to you.
Absolutely.
The first one is exactly that. It's okay, now what? Process the situation. Whether you have to go drive to Sonic Drive In and have a Route 44 Dr. Pepper with cherry and lime, or whatever it is that puts you in a comfort zone to just say, oh shit, what do I do now? And how do I get past this? That's step one. You just have to process it. Step two is get your mind right and positive. I'm not the only one with terminal C out there. I'm not the only one that's had terminal C.
Right.
There's no why me. It's like, okay, in a weird way, why not me? I'm 60. I was 60 years old at that point. I've lived a great life. I've been happy. Okay, I'm good with it. I'm going to get my mind right. I'm going to get positive. Number two. Number three, develop a game plan or action. I then changed to what I considered mindful living. So I have to, how do I want to live my life for as long as I have going forward? The next one I've got on here is number four is just take the next step right towards that plan. It may be weight loss. It may be getting past a divorce or whatever. And I've always loved this phrase: a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
Right.
Don't look at the 1,000 miles. Take the first step, then take the next step. Go slow at it in overcoming some kind of hurdle. Um, the number five thing I've got on my list that I wrote down is reach out to family, friends, and a support group. Have a nuclear of people that you can talk to that care about you. And whether you expand that or shrink it or whatever it is, have a group. It's so helpful to have that. Number six, have patience and have fun. Yeah, I've laughed throughout this. I talked about Sonic, and I've talked about Go Big or Go Home, or all those things. By the way, part of being stage 4 terminal cancer is it wasn't just in my lungs. It was also in my lymph nodes. It was in my upper stomach, and a couple of they said that I had some cancer cells up in my brain. And
Mm.
I always laugh and I say, well, that explains a lot right there. So have fun, enjoy, not embrace it. You can't embrace
Right.
it, but embrace the situation and be able to try and move forward with it. Number seven is one we talked about earlier: eat right and exercise. Try and put yourself in a happy place. Number eight, understand that life is cyclical with ups and downs. I was down here, but over the last year, I was able to take one of my worst situations and I turned this into one of my best years ever. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe next year is going to be better than this one. And who would have thought, right?
Right.
I shouldn't even be here, but it's been great. I'll say out they who knows, in another 2 years they may come out with another pill or something better, that gives me more hope than what I have right now. So you never know, but just life is ups and downs. Take it as is. Number 9, seek out the meaning of your life and your passion, which is what I'm doing.
Right.
I want to give back. That's what I can do and talk about this. And 10, related to that, is what I call, what while we're here, make it count, right? I want to make my life worth something, and this helps, and certainly family relationships and all that,
Right.
but beyond that, what could I do for the greater good?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are the 10 steps I think to handle any kind of adversity that I think any of your audience could take away.
It's very good, Paul. It is good. And I've talked about a lot of those. I think it's great coming from somebody in your position because I think we talk about all these things, right? And they sound cliche a lot of times, right? Until
They do.
the moment that you realize they're not cliche, there's
They're
truth in
not.
them, right? There's real truth in them. So thank you for sharing that. So, and now you're having the opportunity. When I chatted with you last, you're getting to speak now and go on podcasts and really share this message and kind of your passion. That's what I'm hearing, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited that you're able to do that. And sometimes,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I feel like we have to have these things that allow us to really find our purpose and be able to use that situation and put it for the good of something. I'm sure you're going to inspire others. And, when people hear your story, they're going to be impacted by this. And I'm excited, not because of this, but to share this with our audience and let them hear this because we talk about so many incredible stories on this podcast. And when we get stories like this, where somebody's having to deal with some real adversity and weather through it, I think it says a lot about the human condition and and how we learn to persevere through these kinds of
Yeah.
things. So thank you for being able and willing to do that with our audience as well.
My pleasure.
So let's say somebody wants to get in touch with you. Maybe they want to follow your journey. I know I've been watching you on Facebook and seeing all your travels and all the things that you're doing and your posts. And it's been fun to see you kind of go through all of that. And I got to catch up with you, a week or so ago and had no idea where you were even at in that journey. I just knew I've been seeing you travel around all over. Like Paul's living his best life, traveling everywhere. But
There
let's
are
say,
there are there are some people that see me and they look like they've seen a ghost because they knew on Facebook I was stage 4 and terminal, and yet then they see me and they can't even tell. And it's like,
yeah,
no. Life throws you great things sometimes, even in adversity, even in the face of
yeah.
horrible stuff.
You certainly don't act and behave like you do. And I think that's what's keeping you going is staying active and doing all the things that you're doing. And it's good that you were in that place beforehand because it's not a new thing that you're having to
Right.
pick up. It was
It's
already
not a stretch. Yeah.
exactly. But let's say our audience wants to get in touch with you. Maybe they want to follow you, reach out to you. Maybe somebody's in that place or they know somebody and they want to reach out to you. Is there a place you would like us to send them?
Oh, anybody can email me,
Okay.
at pdstudie, STUDE, at verizon.net,
Okay.
pdstudie at verizon.net. And I also, again, have my marketing
Yes.
company, so they can go online to mosaltomarketing.com, especially if they have marketing needs. I don't want to give a shameless plug on here, but
Well,
hey,
no, that's you
yeah,
are an entrepreneur still too. So I mean, we didn't get to talk about all that because your story is
yeah,
so profound. But yes, I mentioned that in the beginning because you are an entrepreneur, and
yeah,
it's no doubt that we talk about that adversity happens in business too. They're all connected,
yeah.
So if anybody
And
needs,
I'm on Facebook, so
perfect.
under my name,
Yep. Okay, and we'll
just
make
like the car. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll make sure, Paul, when this goes out, we'll make sure you're connected and everything. So yes, if they do need marketing services, and obviously we do want to send them there for that as well. So we didn't get to chat about all that as much today, but I'm
that's all right.
proud of you for staying strong and doing what you've got to do because I know like I said I haven't been in that shoes, but I can only imagine that it is a tough journey, and I'm impressed with your ability to weather through and do the things that you're doing and continue to fight on. But I think people that are in that space that do that when you're faced with adversity, if you're a perseverer, you're probably going to carry perseverance through everything that you do, because that's just who you are and how you're built, you know?
Yeah. Well, you don't really have a choice. At
Exactly.
least to me, I don't have a
Right.
choice. I mean, it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, keep speaking, telling your story when you can. And like I said, I'm sure you're going to be an inspiration to those that get to hear this. So I do
Thank
want
you.
to say to our audience, of course, reach out to Paul. If you want to get in touch with him, if you need marketing services, definitely go to his marketing page. We'll make sure all the links are on there for that. And of course, if you enjoy our show, please be sure you check us out over on Apple. Give us a rating over there. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube so we can keep sharing these inspiring stories with you. And as I always say, in order to live the extraordinary, you must start. Every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, be kind to one another, and we will see you next time.